a dive bar when one, you you're the last show before the bar closes.
Yeah.
And two, you find a live bullet round in the parking lot.
Oh God, right? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think
You know,
we're the best
Brian,
one in town.
we were playing at a bar in our youth.
is that where Patty Pickup came?
And no.
No, all right.
And
Oh,
somehow during the set, I don't know what happened, but a gentleman in the
two guys broke out in the
place
fight.
broke a bottle to make it into a weapon.
And so there we are.
But we had the rest of the night off.
Staying Beatles on
Clear the play.
So
Not gonna happen.
it's always good to play, just get in touch with
All right.
the healing power of music.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay. Good morning, everybody. So the last couple of times we've talked, rather than our normal refuge prayer, we've talked about other ways that you can do this using mantras and visualizations, and specifically mantra or mantrayana is using visualization and these mantras and a sense of feeling that you get from that to raise our awareness, raise our wisdom, our understanding of compassion, understanding of the nature of reality. That's what these mantras are designed to do. So if you recall, last couple of times we talked about the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra, which is Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Muniye Swaha. And the central part of that is Muni Muni Maha Muniye. Muni has to do with the control that a great sage, a holy person has over their mind. So that particular mantra was outlining the entire path for us. So the first Muni is Shakyamuni Buddha was able to overcome the lower realms, being reborn into lower realms in samsara. So through the practice of ethical discipline, and he was able to get into always being born into a human realm or higher so that he could continue to move on his spiritual path. This is exactly what we are trying to do as well. We're following Buddha Shakyamuni's path. The second Muni was that he became liberated from the suffering of cyclic existence. And that was done through having a realization of uh, the lack of any inherent self existence. There's a realization of emptiness. Once we have that, we are liberated from the suffering of cyclic existence. It doesn't mean that we are enlightened. It means there's still more work to do. So then the Mahamuniye was the final one, where there's this all the removal of obscurative afflictions, you might say, the sense of duality between self and other, so that there's a direct experiential realization of non-duality. And we're talking a lot about that in these classes. So that was what that mantra was doing to outline the kind of path that we can go through. All Buddhas share all qualities. So it's not as if there's a isolated Shakyamuni Buddha all by himself that's not related to every other enlightened being. So obviously, in these practices that we're given by the lamas, they have us visualize, Shakyamuni Buddha there, and then all of these other Buddhas coming out, emanating out, and going off to one side or the other, or behind or in front. So I thought we would focus today on Chenrezig, which is the Buddha of compassion. But before we do that, I want to read some writings by Lama Yeshe. And if any of you have studied or attended a class with Venerable Rabina Korten, or have Venerable Rabina Korten as one of your teachers or your guru, then you have a direct lineage connection to Lama Yeshe. So Kavita and I are feeling this more and more and more, that we have this direct connection with Lama Yeshe. Actually, our first hook into studying and practicing Buddhism was through the internet and hearing teachings that were given by Venerable Rabina. She hooked us. And in a way, Lama Yeshe hooked us. And through that, then all of our other teachers sort of appeared and we were on our way. So I want to read what Lama Yeshe says about prostration. This is from a meditation class that he gave near Melbourne, Australia in the late 70s. And prostration is something that we haven't talked a lot about. Um, uh, so I want to read what he has to say. Why do we make prostrations at the beginning of teaching and meditation sessions? It's to beat our ego down a bit. Egocentric pride looks at things very superficially and never sees the nature of reality. When we prostrate, we're not prostrating to the material objects on the altar, but paying homage to true understanding wisdom. People who have taken Dharma teachings before know this well. I mention it mainly for new students. Prostration isn't just a Buddhist custom. To make sure that giving teachings does not become an ego trip, even great teachers like His Holiness the Dalai Lama will prostrate before they get up on the throne. In fact, to diminish pride and become more grounded in reality, both teacher and student should prostrate before a teaching. Otherwise, there's no space for understanding wisdom. The proud mind is like a desert. Nothing can grow in a mind full of pride. Nothing can grow in a mind full of pride. And if you think of what ego is essentially pride. Pride in me, mine, I. That's why we prostrate toward the altar prior to giving and taking teachings. In our everyday lives, we prostrate to things that are not worthwhile. Of course, we don't say that we're prostrating, but in fact, we constantly pay homage to our pride and ego. Instead of prostrating to pride and ego, we should prostrate to understanding wisdom. The Tibetan term for prostration is chag-tsal. In Sanskrit, chag is mudra. The interpretive meaning of mudra is wisdom. Understanding, knowledge, wisdom is the actual mudra. Tsal means to bow down before or pay homage or obeisance to something. Therefore, chag tsal means to bow down to wisdom. When we prostrate our mental attitude, when we prostrate, our mental attitude should be one that recognizes the harmful nature of egocentric pride and understands that knowledge wisdom is the only worthwhile guide. If you don't have this respectful attitude, you might as well not bow down at all. If you're not prostrating with your mind, there's no need to prostrate physically simply for the sake of show or custom. Tradition is not that important. But if you recognize how your pride functions and prostrate to wisdom instead, that is very effective, and doing so makes prostrating a means of training your mind. So, you don't necessarily, not everybody can even physically prostrate on the ground, but you can just be sitting there and, prostrate in this way, and again, you're prostrating to the wisdom of the enlightened beings, the wisdom of the Buddha that has given us this pathway, this graduated path for us to remove all of our afflictive emotions and thinking and grow our wisdom, grow our love, grow our compassion to the point where we can actually become an enlightened being for the benefit of all other beings. So that's really what we're prostrating to. And before every teaching, before every meditation session you do, you just bring that to mind, what it is you're actually, what's important here. What are we actually trying to remove? It's this desert of pride, of ego self-grasping, that where nothing can actually grow, and grow this wisdom that is coming from an enlightened mind to help us. So I thought that was important to read. And then I want to do, before we start, we've done the 9 breaths before, the round of 9 breaths, but I want to again use Lama Yeshe and talk about how he does the 9 breaths. Before we practice, we should first dispel all the impure airs, winds. These are energies that go through our channels and winds. They're like, it's related to our nervous system, but it's an energetic kind of nervous system within us, the winds, throughout our body. So we do this 9-round breathing exercise. Holding your left nostril closed with the back of your right index finger, breathe in slowly through your right nostril. Then block your right nostril with the front of the same finger and exhale through your left nostril. Think that you are breathing out all your impure desire energy. Do this 3 times. Actually, you don't need to hold the nostril closed. You can just visualize the air leaving through the other nostril. Now do the reverse, breathing in 3 times through the left nostril. As you exhale through your right nostril, think that you are breathing out all your impure hatred energy. Finally, breathe in and out 3 times through both nostrils to make all the energies clean, clear, and equal. As you exhale, think that you are breathing out all your impure ignorance energy. In total, this makes 9 rounds. So when we do this, he's saying to breathe in slowly and gently. While we're breathing in, we can think we're inhaling pure, blissful energy from Tilopa, Naropa, all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. You're just this blissful, pure energy of enlightened beings to help you. When you exhale, think that all your physical and mental difficulties, the symptoms of your blocked energy disappear. This is not simply visualization. As soon as you begin to practice 9-round breathing, you will feel some change. When exhaling, now this is interesting, first breathe out gently, then strongly, then gently again. So it's kind of like a crescendo, decrescendo, he's saying, with your breath as you breathe out. I think that's kind of, it pushes all of the stuff out. So when you're thinking of uh, when he's saying, breathe out all hatred energy, that also includes hatred towards yourself. So things like depression is our anger and hatred turned in on ourselves. So we need to be always thinking of ourselves as well when we're doing this. It's not just the hatred towards others, but hatred we may actually have towards ourselves. And with these wisdom teachings, we will be learning that that is just as a very unrealistic view that we have, and we can change that view. So what I want to do this week is do Chenrezig. So you could put the picture of Chenrezig up on the screen so everybody can see that. We've talked about this before, but we'll talk about it again now. So you can imagine that when you're doing a formal session, you visualize the Buddha in the space in front of you. Then out of the Buddha's heart comes Chenrezig, and Chenrezig will go to what would be the Buddha's personal right, would be the left as you're looking at it, and that's representing the compassion wing of the path. There are two wings. There's a wisdom wing and a compassion wing, and Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit name. Chenrezig is the Tibetan name. Buddha of compassion, representing this aspect of the path that has to do with compassion. And I'll read now something from Lama Zopa Rinpoche about this particular mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Very well-known mantra, probably the most well-known mantra. So first Lama Yeshe is talking about the power of mantra. That mantra itself guards your mind. So when we practice mantra, and we practice mantra with these visualizations, which is a practice that's given to us right from the beginning by our teachers, it's actually a form of what they call tantric or vajrayana practice that does not require having some kind of special empowerment to engage in it. They get us started off right away with these kinds of mantras in our practice. The way mantra guards you is by guarding your mind. This is Lama Zopa. If mantra did not guard your mind from those different hindrances, there's no way mantra could guard you. Mantra has many functions and benefits. Even the 3-syllable mantra, Om Ahum, or just one syllable, has all these powers. For instance, the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, contains the whole path, the whole Dharma. There is not a single Dharma that is not contained in that mantra. Mani refers to method, the compassionate actions that we engage in. That's the method. And Padme is wisdom, the wisdom of the actual nature of reality. Mani is method, Padme is wisdom. The whole path to enlightenment is divided into method and wisdom. So that is contained within this mantra. Mani refers to all the method and Padme to all the wisdom that enable you to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Somebody who knows the meaning of the mantra can recite this mantra one time and remember the whole path. In the short time it takes to hear this mantra, you are reminded of the whole path to enlightenment and all the qualities of a Buddha. It is said in the teachings to recite this 6-syllable mantra, which is the essence of the whole Dharma. And His Holiness says something very similar about this particular mantra. So as you're looking at this image that we're going to be holding in our mind, Chenrezig is beautiful white color, very peaceful, loving look on the face. As you can see, Chenrezig is sitting in full lotus position, legs crossed, and has 4 arms and hands. The 2 central hands are holding, if you look closely, it is a blue jewel. This is Mani. Mani means jewel. This is the jewel that Chenrezig is holding. Now, this jewel represents our capacity, our Buddha nature, basically. It's our Buddha nature. It's this, how would we say it? It's not inherent, but it is this innate nature that we have that is the capacity to transform all our actions of body, speech, and mind that are ordinary into enlightened body, enlightened speech, enlightened mind for the benefit of all beings. This is what we have the capacity to do. So Chenrezig is holding this jewel, this Buddha nature that we all have in the hands of love and compassion. Love and compassion. Then if you look, it looks to our left, but it's actually the Chenrezig's right. Chenrezig is holding a crystal mala. And that mala is Chenrezig is constantly sending out joy to all beings. This is the joy, this would be immeasurable joy. And what immeasurable joy is when we reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, that is immeasurable joy. A Buddha is never conflicted. A Buddha is never sad. A Buddha never gives up. It's just immeasurable joy toward all sentient beings. Then if you notice in what looks like Chenrezig's right, as we're looking at it, but it's Chenrezig's left hand, Chenrezig is holding a lotus. This is what represents the wisdom. This represents that out of the, just like a lotus, out of the darkness and obscuration of our ignorance and misunderstanding of reality, we can generate through guidance the causes and conditions that will bring us out of that darkness of ignorance, out of that darkness of delusion, to the surface where we will blossom into the full form of an enlightened being. So this is what this mantra is referring to. It's referring to these four immeasurable qualities and the path of wisdom and compassion. So what we want to do now is just as you can stare at this picture and imagine that from the heart of Buddha Shakyamuni in the space in front of you, Chenrezig comes to the crown of your head and is facing in the same direction as you, and then comes down and superimposes his body over your body. So you're imagining that you have Chenrezig now is superimposed over you, and Chenrezig is basically like a coach showing you how this path works and how the four immeasurables of immeasurable love, compassion, joy, and wisdom function. So we'll say, as you visualize this, we'll say half a round of Om Mani Padme Hum. Okay? So just take a few breaths. Imagine Chenrezig superimposed over you, holding the Mani jewel with your two central hands. Your right hand is the crystal mala, immeasurable joy, and your left hand is the lotus. The lotus also represents the immeasurable equanimity, the understanding that there is not a single sentient being that does not have Buddha nature and that does not have the capacity to attain complete enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So think all of these thoughts to the best of your ability and feel this being superimposed over you as we recite the mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme. My experience has been over the years that the more understanding I have of this particular path, the more I practice this mantra with the visualization, the stronger and stronger the sense of connection to these qualities and these enlightened beings is for me, and and I know this would be the same for any of us as we progress on this. This is what mantra is about. Mantra is about um, sort of shaping your mind and connecting you with these enlightened qualities. So, and the last thing I want to talk about, so that, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and recite the refuge, Sangye Chodang Soki. Let's do that 3 times. After having done that Chenrezig. Sangye Chodang Soki Choknam La Jangchu Bardo Dagni Kyatsu Chi Daki Chenyem Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Penchir Sangye Duparsho Sangye Chodang Soki Choknam La Jangchu Bardo Dagni Kyatsu Chi Daki Chenyem Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chodang Soki Chognam La Jangchu Bardo Dagni Kyatsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Penchir Sangye Druparsho. And feel the support of all of the enlightened beings and our teachers, the lineage of our teachers, as we go into today's teachings. And I want to again start with a teaching from Lama Yeshe. And this directly relates to what we're going to be talking about with Nagarjuna.
Just as a point of interest, I don't know why, but I feel that sharing this. A few weeks ago, I was conversing with Geshe Nima and just talking about, how I was feeling about my Dharma practice and stuff. And he said, "Oh, you should read stories about the lives of some of the holy teachers that we have in our lineage." And he did not mention Lama Yeshe, but he mentioned Tsongkhapa and Buddha himself and once. And it just so happened that somebody had given us the gift of this 2-volume set of the life of Lama Yeshe. And I will say that now it's been a few weeks, and I can really see why Geshe Nima suggested that I read the stories of some of these holy enlightened beings, because we are human, and our confidence in the Dharma, I think, is difficult to develop when we're living in isolation. Say, for example, we're in San Antonio, we don't have a monastery, we don't see the holy beings, we don't have the tantric practitioners who do divinations and all these woo-woo stuff that's quite eye-opening. And I mean, yeah, anyway, so I just wanted to say that Geshe Nima, a few times he's just, he'll call, or insert himself at just the right moment, and it's a little bit interesting, let's just say. Now I've begun to pay more attention, and it's a little bit like if somebody tells you, if you've taken a teacher on board, and I have taken Geshe Nima, requested, and he accepted me as his disciple, then to follow their advice is the whole point. And nobody knows you better than the teacher in front of you who you have some kind of connection with. So I just wanted to share that, how Christopher and I got a little bit more gung-ho about reading about Lama Yeshe was in relation to Geshe Nima's suggestion to read about some of the holy beings.
One of the things that's actually happened is because, as I mentioned, Venerable Ravina is a direct lineage connection to Lama Yeshe. He was her root guru. As been reading these volumes, feeling and reading really the way it's written, it's stories of all of the students, and all of their experiences with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And they just really open your mind up to understand that these teachers that we have that have studied this and are following this path, they have, particularly like somebody like Lama Zopa, Lama Yeshe, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, they have very high realizations, and they have an ability to really size up the students and know exactly what to say, where to be. In some cases, they actually will just appear to them, just out of the blue, like it's some kind of external vision that they have, and speak to them. There are just too many unusual stories in this book to just say, oh, well, they're just making it up. It can't be. It cannot be.
Interestingly, reading these stories about those teachers, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, has made me circle back and think again about some of the coincidences with our own teachers that we have, that we know and love. And I mean, that they have entered our lives at all is a miracle. I mean, if we just step back from that, but I mean,
so I wanted to read something.
Just thought it's sort of like shocking when you sort of think about like, how did that happen?
So it's
It's
basically what this is. What our teachers are doing is they're taking this path that comes from an enlightened mind and is being sort of brought down basically to our level that we can understand, and they are helping us. They are helping us. They're lifting us up, helping us sort of get out of the cloud that we're in and begin to see reality the way it actually is. So here's, if any of you have ever listened to any teaching probably of Venerable Ravina, it doesn't take many to hear this. She will use the example of chocolate cake. Well, this example of chocolate cake comes directly from Lama Yeshe, and he's going to be talking about chocolate cake here. So what chocolate cake represents is whatever it is in your life that you have a grasping attachment toward, that it is, and you keep going back to it in a very habitual manner. It could be some sort of thing that you're very attached to. It could be food. It could be sex. It could be power. The power to get higher and higher and higher and make more and more and more money and more status. You could be attached to that. You could be attached to just getting stuff, going shopping all the time and collecting stuff and hoarding stuff, and whatever it is for you. Take a moment now and think, what is your chocolate cake? What is that for you? What is the thing that you keep going back to, that you desire, that you crave, that you're habituated to?
Hey, it's chocolate cake.
And it may very well be chocolate cake, which is why they use that example.
My chocolate.
Yeah.
So when he's mentioning chocolate cake, think about your own personal chocolate cake. Okay? When distractions mundane thoughts come into our contemplation, we should not get angry or try to reject them. When superstition arises, so superstition would be a unrealistic view of things. When superstition arises, we should take advantage of it. Basically saying, "You're welcome. Would you like to come in?" Mundane thoughts are your teacher. They give you realizations. They show you reality. Let's say the thought of chocolate cake comes into your mind. It is easy to use distractions like this on the path to enlightenment. First of all, why does this thought of chocolate cake come? Because your previous experience of enjoying chocolate cake has left an imprint in your consciousness, in your continuum of consciousness. This is something we've been talking about. The experience itself has disappeared completely, but the imprint remains, as if you'd sealed it, stamped it in your mind, in your consciousness. As long as that stamp is there, the indestructible identification will also be there. It's the same whenever you psychologically experience anything: happiness, misery, anger, bliss. It is never lost. It is imprinted on your mind, programmed into your mental computer. It is always there. This is memory. There is a continuity between the past experience and the present recollection of it. It's like electricity. The source is somewhere else, but the energy comes through the various wires to where we are now without a break. So although the experience of desire has passed, who is acting now? The Tom who experienced desire in the past is completely non-existent. The present Tom is completely non-existent, meaning empty of any kind of fixed inherent existence. But there is the recollection of the experience. The previous experience, the thought, the person, the object, everything is gone, but still the memory of craving desire comes. Superstition comes because it is imprinted on the mind. When you understand that the experience of the chocolate cake arises interdependently, you can see that it has no self-entity, that it doesn't come from the object. It comes instead from your mental energy. You don't need too much explanation to see this. It's simple, isn't it? The imprint of the previous experience of chocolate cake is always there, whether you are awake, asleep, or meditating. Of course, there are cooperative causes too. The feeling of hunger, the arising of desire, the object, the chocolate cake, all these come together. We have to realize that the desirable chocolate cake is a complete hallucination. Objectively, it's not there. It's as if the imprint in your mind manifests into a chocolate cake. You can check up scientifically. Where is that chocolate cake? It is a projection of your superstitious mind. Without the previous experience of chocolate cake, the thought of chocolate cake could not arise now. Your experience has nothing to do with external chocolate cake. Your chocolate cake is an internal object. Your object of craving desire is a fantasy, a hallucination. It happens like this. Every time you recall the chocolate cake and craving arises, you're simply adding more petrol to the fire of your craving, and you keep believing in it as real. Most of the time, we see things as real and believe them to be real when in fact they are like dreams. So whenever the thought of chocolate cake arises in your meditation, recognize with intensive wisdom that it is a hallucination, a mental picture, and that nothing exists out there, this will leave a strong impression on your mind. Then whatever situation arises in your life, you will see it like that. Remember, we discussed seeing a rope as a snake? Believing it's a snake brings fear, doesn't it? If you didn't have this belief, there would be no fear. It's just the same here. When you believe in the self-existent chocolate cake, superstition arises. But if, when seeing the chocolate cake, you recognize it as non-dual, non-self-existent, this will bring some kind of Dharmakaya truth body experience. This is liberated wisdom because it doesn't bring the reaction of craving. I repeat, when the mundane thought of chocolate cake arises in your meditation session, if you use intensive wisdom to analyze the object, you will see that it is just a manifestation of mental energy. It is only mind. No object exists. Because of your previous experiences of chocolate cake, you have the recollection of it now. The past has gone, the future has not yet arrived, so it must be a complete hallucination. This key is skillful, indestructible wisdom. Instead of being caught up in hallucinated objects, you will have blissful experiences instead. Seeing chocolate cake as a hallucination automatically shakes desire, dissolving it, whereas believing in real concrete chocolate cake increases the vibration of fantasy, and by reacting again and again and again, you accumulate deluded karma. I thought that was incredibly astute psychologically, and it applies to all of us. So,
I think what I'm shockingly sort of catching here is the way in which, taking the chocolate cake as an example, of all kinds of latent, I'll just use attachments that are just in my mind stream all the time. And I know there's some aspect of purifying that continuum that's somehow brought into better focus through this
Absolutely.
passage.
you know, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about how we've been talking about the five aggregates. One of them is called conditioning, and that conditioning is basically it's our mental continuum. It's the mental formations that we have, and we have just these imprints, and they are all really, it's true, they're based on attachment, because our anger is a response when our attachment is thwarted. When for instance, say you have this hatred towards some political figure out there. Well, the reason you have developed that hatred is that that political figure in your mind is blocking the thing that you want. It's getting in the way of the thing you want. So any kind of anger, self-hate, depression, any kind of aversion is a response to our attachment not getting the thing that we want. So it's connected. All of these imprints in our mental continuum, whether they be a form of aversion or in hatred and depression or in self-loathing or anything like that, it's all based on because we're not getting what we want, we think we need, we think we crave, we think we desire.
I mean, I think at the level of understanding our fellow humans who, let's just say we observe in our society that different people have different attitudes about politics, social things, environment, the world, everything. And to understand in a new way that their expression in the quote now is coming out of the latent material in their mind stream. And so when we encounter somebody who thinks very differently from us, I mean, it should be rather an eye-opening recognition of the almost limitless time has conditioned this being that I'm now interacting with, and to not make it a trifle that, oh, if they would only, believe this or that thing. I mean, to recognize the depth of the the conditioning since beginningless time that becomes the expression of how we see and act in the world now. Also, again, going back, if you think about that, then makes you really want to re-examine as a practitioner the practices of purification and wisdom, and
Absolutely.
to do all the work to
Mhm.
have that database that you're sitting on top of every moment.
Right. This is where the purification that's part of the seven limb practice is so valuable, so key to the practice of the entire path. Because what we're doing is we're going through our mental continuum. We're going through all of this conditioning we have, looking at what is aligning with what the Buddha says is, this is a good positive action. This will be good for you. This particular kind of action is not good. It's going to cause trouble. And then we look what's in there that is going to cause trouble. And what we do in the process in the seven limb practice at the purification stage is we basically purify, and the only purification, we're the ones doing the purification. We are sort of cleaning our system by looking at what are these patterns that are a problem, that are negative, whether it's killing or stealing or whatever it may be. What is the opposite of that? Because what I would need to do then, for instance, if I get a rush out of killing another being, say I'm a hunter and I get a thrill basically out of taking the life of some other being, and I realize, this isn't actually very virtuous. What do I do? What's the opposite thing that I could start to put into my mental continuum on a regular basis that's going to counteract that, like an antidote? And that would be protect life, save life, don't kill. So you think you do the opposite. You just don't go, oh, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You say that these are a problem, but then you go, do this, do the opposite of that thing, do this. That's what that practice is all about. And through that, the visualizations that you do and using the Vajrasattva mantra and all of that, you are purifying your own mental continuum, your own conditioning.
An ordinary experience that I think is helpful for us to look for in our day-to-day life to see how we're changing. But we have a swimming pool, and it's quite common for there to be a bug floating and drowning in the pool. And every time I go out there, the first thing I do is look to see if a life needs to be saved. And over the years, I've kind of started to do that with increased urgency. For example, at the beginning, I might have thought, well, let me raise this umbrella and then I'll go fish that wasp out of the pool. But now I almost run for the net and, every little bug that I see, and I'm sharing this because this is the ordinary way to develop, the preserving life.
Yeah, new patterns, right?
New patterns.
Yeah.
And I can see in my own case some deepening of that happening.
So
that's how it happens. It's just like dumb stuff like that.
That purification practice should not be underestimated. It's extremely powerful and foundational to the whole path. So thought we'd mention that. Now, on to Nagarjuna. We've been talking about various ways. Nagarjuna is refuting various ways that different schools or people think about how things inherently have an inherent fixed existence. And we've talked about there is no inherent time, there are no inherent moments there, so we're on to kind of where we left off. And this is verse 71. Here's what it says. Due to having many parts, there is no unity. There is, all right, due to having many parts, there is no unity. There is not anything without parts. Further, without one, there is not many. Also, without existence, conventional existence, there is no non-existence, emptiness. If someone says that things exist inherently, Nagarjuna asks them, does a thing inherently exist as one sole thing? Take a material object, such as a piece of paper, for example. It is not an inherently existing one thing because it has many directional parts. Its front, back, right, and left, north, south, east, and west parts. And this we talked about this. I think this is the last thing that we talked about the last time. There is nothing that cannot be physically or mentally broken down into its various parts. If something has directional parts, it cannot be an inherently existent one thing. It would not inherently be one thing. Something that is an inherently existent one cannot be analyzed into directions and parts. It would just be one thing and have no parts whatsoever. And that just takes us thinking about it. But couldn't there be inherently existing many? Many meaning more than one. To this, Nagarjuna says, since there is no inherently existent one, there cannot be inherently existing many or several, because inherently existent many is a collection of inherently existent ones. To have many, first there needs to be one, and there is no inherently existent one. In short, things are not truly existent because they do not inherently exist either as one or many. Now, when we first studied, and I remember Lama Pasang translating Geshe Drapa, and Drapa would say, talk about truly existent, and I would think, this is it. This is the thing. This is the right thing. And I was completely misunderstanding what they were saying. So, in short, things are not truly self-existent, is what basically is what it's saying. Things do not truly have a inherent fixed nature. If you go back to our discussion about the five aggregates and how everything appears to our particular set of aggregates, our sense consciousnesses are taking in all of these various forms, sounds, smells, tastes, types, touches, sounds, we then sort of get a sort of a feeling, no matter what. It's just a feeling. We discriminate what that thing is, and then we reach into our conditioning, all of our conditioning, and then we go, either that's something I'm pushing away or something I'm liking. And all the gradations of attachment and aversion. This is what's constantly happening. And so there actually is no inherently fixed anything out there. It is entirely based on how our aggregates are perceiving it and placing our conditioning onto each thing. So that is the world that each one of us experiences. And we've talked about this before. Every sentient being has every let me say every species of sentient beings have a different kind of body, different kind of way that their aggregates work. We've talked about this, and this is an extremely important point. So if you think about, say, a fly or a mosquito, their view of this is entirely different than our view of this. So in other words, there's no self-existent this out there. It's all appearing through our aggregates to us. And then our conditioning tells us what we think of it, what it's for, how it functions, whether we like it, whether we don't like it. This is profound beyond anything when you really think about it. So somebody asked Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they said, he was talking about this, and they said, well, is there anything out there at all? I mean, is there just nothing out there? And he said, no, there is something there, but what it is so subtle that it's as if it were an illusion. Because each one of us, every species, every sentient being is experiencing a different world out there according to their particular sets of aggregates and their conditioning. Now, us humans, we have sort of a conventional agreement about things. We will say, this is a purple color, that's a red couch. After that, it stops. We all have different feelings about it. Somebody's going to think, oh, that's beautiful, or somebody will think that's the most boring couch I ever saw. It all is coming from the side of the consciousness, the mind. So that's where all the work has to take place on our path to enlightenment, is within our own mind, our own consciousness. It's not out there, it's here. And this is why this idea of non-duality is so important. And you can just get an inkling of it when you start thinking along these lines. You can realize, oh yeah, there really is no dualistic thing from its own side out there. It is totally a non-dual experience that I'm having, that we're all having. It's just freaky, actually, if you think about it. Anyway.
Yeah, funny, back when I was teaching anthropology classes, I used to, and I remember I was like, oh, these are great illustrations of emptiness. But I would show images of, there are these tree grubs and they're nasty. They're just like, oh, again, that's my perception of them they're these down in South America. And I'd show the students a big bowl of this and these grubs that live under the bark. You just peel the bark off and pull, and then I'd be like, it's like, no, 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 no. What do you think of these? And everybody like, oh, and I'd say, no, 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 this is breakfast, like because they eat them down there. They're like a snack. They're highly valued. There's a lot of protein in them. There's a lot of, and but it just struck me of like, yeah, they're not. They're just this thing. And your reaction to it is entirely culturally learned and because their perception of that is delicious.
Right.
And there were just so many examples of that just kept coming up.
What this points to is that
it's emptiness.
There's like nothing inherently good. There's nothing inherently bad. The things that we put out there and say, oh, that's evil, that's terrible. Well, that's because that's the way we see it.
Well, and that's where it gets really tricky.
It does get
in
tricky.
The higher teachings, and like the story of what it was at Tilopa, and when he first meets Marpa meets Tilopa, and he's his guru, and he's basically frying live fish in front of doing these things that are quote unquote bad, and I mean, what I've always heard is, well, you got to be very honest with yourself about where you are in terms of your perception of emptiness.
That's right.
Right.
To start excusing behavior, like until you have those realizations and can really control that external reality in a way that I think is, beyond certainly me. There's value in.
I think of some of the things, I mean, I've had this experience myself with a teacher, but sometimes teachers can be quite harsh with us.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody looking from the outside would go, oh, that's not the way a spiritual teacher should act at all.
Right.
Well, but they understand, they've sized you up, and they understand that those very pointed words at you, said in a particular way, are going to rattle something in you. Maybe will think about it for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then come to a conclusion wow, they were right. They were correct. They made me look at some part of myself that I wasn't even seeing. So
Definitely.
there's a whole lot of skill there. So it's, yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be used as an excuse to go around and killing.
No, but you're absolutely right, and I have definitely struggled with that with perceptions of teachers.
The
Yeah.
thing that
Too.
is really key
It's
though
tough.
is this harming and non-harming.
Exactly.
I mean, you
Right.
use the term good and bad, but there is
Harming and non-harming. Right.
There is such a thing as harming, and that's to be refrained.
Right. My point is that in my instance, when I had a teacher who was very rough and harsh with me, they actually didn't harm me. They helped me. So what may appear to be harm was actually beneficial.
Yeah, but
But if you're actually harming a living being out there and they're, screaming and crying and kicking, well, then that's not a good thing. It's not.
so there is.
I mean, you can see directly there's no benefit there.
The reason we're talking is you said there's no inherently good or bad out there. Well, I don't know what you mean by inherent in this
Fixed.
instance, but if
Ultimately
you're
fixed.
engaging in a behavior, or somebody is engaging in behavior that is clearly and undisputably harming another being.
All right. Okay. Let's say what a lot of people think
That's clear.
is that, say, somebody like who's in a hell, they're inherently evil, fixed. And in many religions, that's it. You are fixed, you're inherently evil, you're there for eternity forever. Buddhism is completely different in its view about that. Buddhism says we generate our own particular hell realms for ourselves. It's not inherently fixed, and we can get out of it. We can generate the causes and conditions that will get us out of that dark, dark view of ourself and the world. So that's what I mean by it's not inherently fixed evil or inherently fixed good, because good can what seems to be good can turn and be bad. I mean, we have to be extremely skillful and extremely wise when we start talking along these terms. It's not just cut black and white in the way we normally think about it. Okay, go on. If we can see that material things do not inherently exist because of not being one or many, we will be able to use that same reasoning to understand that phenomena without form, such as consciousness, are also not inherently existent. Is there inherently one moment of consciousness? There isn't. Because each moment has a beginning, middle, and last part. If there is not one inherently existent moment of consciousness, there cannot be many inherently existent moments of consciousness, because in order to have many, there must be a collection of inherently existent ones. In this line in the stanza, which says, also without existence, there is no non-existence. The idea, what Nagarjuna is refuting is the idea that a thing's emptiness is its true existence. In this line, the word existence refers to conventional existence, for example, a table. And non-existence refers to the emptiness of inherent existence, in this case, the table's emptiness, empty of inherently existing. Just like we talked about. The table is the basis of its own emptiness of true existence. Since the basis, the table itself, lacks true existence, inherent existence, any attribute or property of the table, in this case, the table's emptiness, cannot have true existence as well. So emptiness itself is not inherently existent. That's another one to think about.
How do you realize something that's not inherently existent?
You experience it. I mean, I think what realization is referring to is a direct experience.
Yeah, there's there's levels of experiencing it. There's logically like inference, like what we're doing right now is essentially making the logical arguments and then inferring a perception from that. To There's another way of experiencing it directly, in my understanding, which requires us first to attain samadhi, first of all, single pointed concentration. And in that state, contemplate these things. And we will have another kind of perception, which I really can't verbalize because I haven't experienced it personally. So, but that's that.
Right.
Am I on track?
Yeah. I think so.
So right now it's just an inferential kind of how do you experience something like this as well? Usually when I've asked that of teachers, the answer is keep meditating, and just keep at it. And it's like, because it's hard to describe what that experience will be like. But what we can get a grasp on is like an inferential, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
And keep going over that. That makes sense. Now focus on that like logical conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Make that your focus and meditate. Like just kind of stew in that for a while. Like, and I'm always amazed when I read this stuff. Nagarjuna is talking about emptiness at like super subtle levels here. Like, you know how a couple of weeks ago you did our dedication, and I've been doing this a lot. Where I'll say like, may I, who appear but don't inherently exist, dedicate this merit, which is appearing because of causes and conditions, dedicated for the well-being of people who are appearing, and yet from causes and conditions, but don't inherently. Like I've been just thinking about it a lot, and that does just like every time I think about myself or others, just think causes and conditions. It does kind of help start chipping away at a sense of solidity. Over time.
I mean, even talking about non-duality, it chips away at the sense of objective, reality.
But he is really talking about like such a subtle level of breaking it off. Okay, when you see this cup, is it made up of one or many? Well, one what? Well, a piece of clay, a molecule of clay. Like he's going down to that smallest level, and then and same thing with time and moments and consciousness and that and I don't know. I'm just always amazed by it because it's so subtle and deep.
It is so. And on our own,
on
our own, it seems like we never would think this way. We would just be stuck, with the appearance. What appears to us seems to be solid, and separate and out there, and not have anything to do really with my mind or my anything. And yet it's totally the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the logic, we have to understand the logic of that. So without these wisdom teachings, we can't have a direct realization. It's just not going to happen.
But we can have an indirect. We have essentially an indirect.
I mean, I don't want to be a dead horse because
no.
The challenge is if you convince yourself hard enough that something is correct, you'll believe it's correct, even if it's not correct.
Yeah,
right? I mean that's
absolutely.
Yes,
that's a huge problem.
Yeah, but it's a problem with this as well in some ways. Yes, because if you say that I believe that emptiness is correct, and then,
before you've directly experienced it, 100%. Yeah.
So you're talking about perception versus perspective. You're talking about everybody has their own perception of their own reality, which is true.
Yeah.
And it's helpful to be able to actually perceive or get the perspective of somebody else's reality instead of your own. So kind of bit
right.
But it's like this circular argument where everybody has their own reality, including yourself. And I was listening to something else about death and dying and what happens after you die, and And the fundamental way that you begin on understanding what happens after death, this idea that you go and you see the white light and you go into the tunnel and whatever, there's a heaven. You have to believe it first. Well,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you'd like to have, and I get, you're trying to logic it out, and that's where we are, and you're trying to logic it, through excluding every other possibility, you come to this basic conclusion that it can't be anything else, but it's kind of a negative way of approaching it rather than a positive affirmational way of approaching it.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right. And I struggled with this so much. I'm right there with you. And two things, in my opinion. One, it's very humbling because I've realized like how much I truly do not know. I just don't know. And it's okay. And I've just gotten okay with admitting, like, I'm not going to claim that I know something when I really don't. Which is, again, that's part of why, I pulled away from certain churches, certain religions, because I could not do that. I couldn't say, well, I haven't had that experience. So you're right. And then the logic, and the Dalai Lama has a beautiful book on this, which I'll mention next time, but it's basically faith through, what is it? Faith through wisdom or something, where he talks about this of like, well, how do you get to a point where you actually believe something when you haven't experienced it? And it's why logic and inference and debate is so central in Tibetan culture and those teachings of how to think critically. And but what I think we are missing in a lot of ways, and this has become really important to me lately. I'm feeling a sense of urgency around it. Is single pointed concentration and meditation, like truly developing that. I'm realizing that logic and that negative approach to things is only going to get me so far, that I will not experience directly many of these things and get answers to many of things unless I develop single pointed concentration.
Yeah.
That's the other tool, right?
Mhm.
Like that
Yeah.
that is so central. The teachers have, and there's been debates about the relative merit of the Gelugpas are all about logic and lists and and they don't meditate, and Lama Yeshe even has talked about, no, actually that's not true. We have the same teachings of, but and the Kagyus don't do any better. They just meditate, talk about non-duality and all that. And it's like, the reality is they all agree you need them both. And it's just a matter of emphasis, and I'm realizing though that if I want answers like you're asking, I'm gonna have to develop different states of mind that I haven't gotten to yet.
And I guess
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. And I think what we need is a sense of enthusiasm to do that.
To get there.
Because the idea of like, oh my God, sitting to achieve single pointed concentration sounds like such a chore. But if we had like a fire under our butt about this, because these wisdom teachings are making sense and they're logic, and so you go, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this single pointed concentration thing and see where I go with it, or Mahamudra, or whatever it is,
Now that does also take a little bit of a leap of faith that the teachers are telling me that this will help, and so the only reason I'm willing to take that leap is because logically the other things have checked out, and when they've said, oh, if you do these mantras, enough, you should start to feel a certain way, and I'm going, and yeah, I do feel a little different.
Right.
So
that
slowly that quote unquote faith grows, I think.
I agree with you. Right? I agree with you. I mean,
not and I will say, not always. Not always. There have been times but enough that sometimes I think, well, if it's not working, is it I'm not ready for it? Not that the teaching's wrong, but I'm just not there yet, or I'm doing it wrong, or something like that. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
we probably, there's still work for us to do in our whole
Yeah.
mental continuum and all of that.
And it is really humbling.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But the thing, Buddhism never ever requires us to believe anything. It doesn't. It's the message is always check it out for yourself. Even the Buddha said, don't believe what I'm saying. Don't believe it. Check it out for yourself. And that's, I think, one of the things that was most attractive to me about Buddhism. Most attractive. It was saying, you don't have to believe this. Just check it out. See what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it gets back to this issue that, everybody has a confirmational bias
yeah.
about lots of things
Yeah.
based upon their experiences, not only this life, maybe past,
Yeah.
whatever, the habituations, whatever. So, and yeah, it takes many lifetimes to overcome this. And so you have to be willing to say, I don't have many lifetimes to get through this, and we're gonna keep working at it for many
Yeah.
lifetimes. But it's still, at the end of the day, especially as we're going now, more and more, it's hard to know what truth actually is anymore,
Yeah.
and what is actually correct or not. Because you can have the same set of facts, and two different people can look at them and come to completely different conclusions
Yeah.
about what those facts say or what they mean. And it used to be we had a common agreement about what facts meant,
Yes.
but now we just don't even have a common agreement about what a fact means. And
Well, what I
it
think,
means what you believe it means.
Yeah.
Well, so now you go back and
Yeah.
say, well, if it means what you believe it means, and I believe that Buddhism is the right path, then okay, Buddhism is, I mean, so it just
Well,
gets in this.
It is very Buddhist.
but this is where, this is where I fall down on that now. Is it's kind of like, okay, well, if a set of facts and some people are going to understand this way, and like I've gotten to a point where I'm perfectly fine with that. What what the Buddha said, somebody, I can't remember, I won't get this right, but his response was, I teach suffering and the end of suffering. So depending on those people interpreting fact, are they happy? Are they suffering? Or are they happy? That will get you a long way, I think. Like, because that's the point. And yet Lama Yeshe says it, like the point is the point of this life is not to suffer, is to be miserable. It is to find happiness and lessen suffering. So is your interpretation of reality leading to happiness? I don't personally, I see a lot of people whose interpretations of quote unquote facts is making them angrier and mean and
Miserable, really.
and miserable.
Yeah.
And so, but the other thing I would say is I had a teacher make a comment once about this, where they were saying like the 10 virtues and the 10 under and this idea of believing these things even if you're not sure that they are. And he said at one point, he's like, well, okay, let's say it's all not, we're wrong. It's not a bad way to live. Like, and we all kind of laughed, but he's like, is it such a bad way to live? But I think his point again was, it's a happier way. It's a happy way to live.
Right.
Like,
if we're non-harming, and we're
Right.
being helpful, we're going to feel
and it's like, if we turn out, that's wrong, and okay, but you didn't waste your life.
Yeah.
I mean, there's worse ways to live.
Your point is exactly on the mark, because that was the very first thing the Buddha said. There's suffering and there's a way out of it. That's what he was teaching. And that's all it's about. That's all it's about. But turns out it's extremely complex,
Yeah.
to get there, because it's almost as if we have to undo an entirely, I guess, diluted way of perceiving reality, an unrealistic way of perceiving reality. Maybe that's a nicer way to say it, but really that's what delusion is. It's just, not reality, not perceiving reality. And that's what the teachers will say, is that we're deluded about this. And that's what that's what these teachings are all about, is to try and help us become more real in our view. All right, where were we? An object and its emptiness are posited in dependence on each other. If there isn't a table, we can't talk about the emptiness of inherent existence of the table. The fact that an object and its emptiness are mutually dependent means neither of them is an independent entity. Thus, neither the object nor the emptiness of the object inherently exists. I think this is where we try to go. We try to go, oh, what's reality? What's reality? That must be the inherently existing thing. You know, and emptiness. Oh, that must be the thing that actually inherently exists. And they're saying, no. That's just not the way it is. Because we're still fixated on this idea that there's got to be this objective, concrete thing we can point to and go, that's it.
In a way, that's the underlying problem that you're wrestling with, is that you're operating on an assumption is that there is something
Verifiable, real.
there is something
Well,
valid and
I'm
real.
look, I'm operating in the assumption that, like everybody else here, I think you're right. This is a good way to live. I think a lot of this makes sense logically, so
Yeah.
it's a good path to follow. And at the end of the day, even if it's wrong, you know, it's you're still doing okay. And
Yeah.
you'll still be a good person. And you still live a decent life. So okay, there's no harm, no foul, so to speak.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you know, at some point, at some way, and this is my own habituations and my own what do you call it? My own way of looking at things and my own way of thinking about things. I mean, I look for evidence that something is correct, that evidence and facts, or whatever you want to call them, that this is correct. And you know, that's harder and harder to do the more you get into this, because you know, this idea that everything is interdependent and there's nothing that exists independently of anything else, and that we don't even know what reality is. So it gets a little more difficult to say, well, how will I actually know that I've actually reached enlightenment? You know, I mean, how will I know I've experienced that I've reached enlightenment? I have no idea what it's like. Does that mean absence of suffering? Is that what enlightenment is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, it's also combined with the desire to help others.
Yeah.
Because you can have absence of suffering. You can have like a solitude, a solitary peace, solitary nirvana, where your point was not to just go all the way to enlightenment to then help everyone else. But they say the solitary nirvana is temporary, because eventually you will recognize that there's more to be done. If there's still suffering out there and you're just going, oh, well, I don't care, I'm happy, there's something not quite right going on in the mind. Yeah.
But it's funny because like, well, everything is sort of dissolving and everybody's gonna and because I'm like you, I'm sorry, you know, I want that too. What I'm starting to realize though is like that truth, facts that I'm looking for is that fuzziness in some way, which is very disconcerting to me.
Hard scientists are finding that. When you go into physics, it's disconcerting to them.
And they're like, we don't get this.
We don't
like,
understand.
How is this possible that, like, you know, you've got, you know, particle and wave can coexist. Like, is it what?
Yeah. And what do they call it?
Entanglement.
Spooky entanglement.
Yeah, things like that. Like, so I think you're feeling exactly what you should be feeling, and you're embracing. And what I love is that Buddhism embraces that desire to want to know reality 100%. I think it's holiness dialogue would be like, yes, keep asking, that you're asking all the right questions.
Right.
How will you know?
They make it damn hard to understand some of this stuff.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's because it's so alien to us. I mean, really.
And all I can say about the comment of how will I know, like really know, is what I've heard from some teachers, which is I remember like, well, how will I know when I develop genuine bodhicitta rather than like wishing bodhi, you know, the sort of ersatz, like I'm faking it, the fake it till you make it. Well, how will I know when I make it? And they basically just say,
You'll know.
there will be no doubt. like you there.
So if I said, give me your top of your arm off and give it to me, would you say that then if you say, okay, you've reached bodhicitta? I mean, I mean,
yeah, well, not just bodhicitta. I think you need to have it has a pretty high level understanding of emptiness too to do that. But yeah,
Or you
uh,
totally missed the boat and
Oh,
it's like you never kill.
yeah, I was just
or
thinking
you need,
about
yeah,
the practices of the bodhisattvas. One of them is to, give of your own self, your own life, your own
Mhm.
existence, if necessary,
Yeah.
for somebody
Yeah.
else.
And there are examples of modern day examples who people will give up their life to save someone else.
Yeah.
We see that. We see that. It's just that
I don't know if they think about it that way.
They may not
I'm
think it,
trying to
but they're-
help
but
somebody
just-
else, and all of a sudden I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saved somebody, but now I can't swim because I'm too tired or too. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so
well, yeah, no,
I think there's
I-
also an understanding that life goes on. There will be you die.
I've
But
got to
there's
go
a
back to my
cycle.
saving the wasp with a net. That was
Yeah.
it's become spontaneous, and I think now I can I can imagine at a bodhisattva level, your MO is
yeah,
how can I
Well-
shift everything appearing to me towards liberation and enlightenment? Thinking again, going back to the stories of the teachers and seeing how they spend their time, and just make the assumption, well, if that's what living motivated by bodhicitta looks like, thinking about, like, they always talk about Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and it's nice to read the stories about him. Apparently he didn't sleep much because he was writing letters to people who were writing to him, meditating, doing practices, painting, calligraphy to send to people. I mean, he was just he couldn't imagine wasting the time sleeping, I guess.
That's
Which,
true.
if you think about it,
He didn't eat much either.
I think we've all heard of situations like, say there's a forest fire, and firefighters will go days without sleeping, and they're motivated to put out that fire. And I think we have these examples that maybe can help us have a little more confidence, or have the confidence that when we're a bodhisattva, we'll know it.
yeah. Well, yeah. One of the
no,
Right.
well,
Sort of like, right, okay, Brian, I think you would identify yourself as a moral person.
I tried. Yes.
Okay, how do you know?
Because there's a construct of moral ethics that I follow in my existence. That's how I know. So there is a construct. There's
Right.
philosophy.
You
out
have
there.
said, I'll kind of paraphrase. You have said, I try to do the right thing. I try to be kind.
Yeah.
You've even used the word kindness and caring about others.
Mhm.
Oh.
I don't think you're thinking of the Ten Commandments when you. I don't think you need to go back and think of the social construct of what's nice and what isn't nice anymore. You just know.
Take it out of good and bad. How do you know you love someone? Prove it.
Yeah.
Prove to me that you love someone.
Well, this has been an ongoing question I've had.
Well, no, I know. I mean, what is it? Is it a feeling? Is it a what? Yeah, that's a deep question. How do you know what you know? Like,
Yeah.
that's a deep.
Well, I think you do anything for that person. I mean, that's how you know.
And
You want to help them. You don't want to hurt them.
And bodhicitta, I think that's why I say, like, that's why when somebody asks, how will I know I'm bodhicitta? It's like, you will know because it will be an all-consuming kind of, and he gave an example of, he was on a plane that they thought was going to go down. It was passenger flight, and like they literally had them take had to take their jewelry off because if it catches on fire. They got in a crash, and he said, what was this busy, bustly, everybody irritable vibe entirely shifted when people thought, holy, this could be the end. And he said there was a feeling of sweetness and community that he was like, I think that is somehow what something like bodhicitta is going to feel like. And it's like you're going to know that. Like it's so profound and deep. And again, I'm just passing this along. I don't know this. Again, I'm just saying.
Who said this?
A teacher, a monk.
Yeah. What's so interesting though in that what was like a shocking situation,
Yeah.
what comes out of people when they know, whoa, this it's over.
Right.
It's just this sweetness, this wanting to connect, to help, to be,
Yeah.
I think that's where we want to abide, really. I mean, I think that's our nature, really, and we've
Exactly.
covered it over with all of these misconceptions. And I think Buddhism is a process of kind of undoing all the misconceptions and just to get to reveal our actual nature.
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to have to leave it there. It is 12:30. So let's just do some quick closing. This has gone by quickly. It's been a really good discussion. Thank you, everybody. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect lamas and so enjoy the magnificent Dharma, completing all the qualities of the stages and paths. May we quickly attain the state of Vajradhara.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good discussions. I really appreciate that.
We have the same questions though. And
Well, I think we have.
You guys are a lot further along than I am. So no, I mean.
Hey, there's a text or a book. It's kind of secular. It kind of touches on our attachment with reason. It's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Oh yeah, I've heard of
never
that.
actually read it. It's not
And,
my book.
I've read it a couple of times, and each time I see more of the attachment, and it seems like I develop more of a way to maneuver around attachments to reason. So maybe that could help us. I'm beginning to start it on the third time. So anyway,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks, Arthur. I'll check it out. Yeah. Okay, everybody, thank you. Zen and the
Art of motorcycle maintenance.
Art of motorcycle maintenance. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop our recording.
Yeah.